Until we can manage time, we can manage nothing else. That is a quote by Peter Drucker.
Welcome to Trina Talk. Trina Talk is a weekly podcast that will inspire and empower women of all ages to strive for the impossible. Your host, Trina L. Martin from TrinaMartin.com, is a motivational speaker, leader, and cyber tech expert. Every week, Trina will share wisdom gained from her life experiences and lessons learned while pursuing her goals to inspire you to achieve the next level in your life. Now, your host, Trina L. Martin.
Hello, welcome to Trina Talk. I am your host, Trina L. Martin, and this is episode 63. The topic of this week's episode is, how are you spending your time? My guest this week is Mark Struczewski. Mark is a productivity expert, online trainer, and podcast host. He helps people be productive in a distracted world. He works with executives to help them gain control of their time by taming distractions so that they can experience less overwhelm, feel a sense of freedom, and enjoy their lives. Hello, Mark. Welcome to Trina Talk.
Thank you, Trina. It is such a pleasure to be here, and it's awesome to know that you live in Houston along with me.
I know. I haven't interviewed anyone who actually lives in Houston, so this is pretty exciting for me as well. I am excited because you're different than...
I've been told that before.
Now, I don't mean that kind of different, but different than some of the other people I've had on the show, because you are a productivity expert and online trainer, and you specialize in helping people cut out the distractions from their life. Okay, first of all, I want to know, what did you do before you decided to do this?
Well, actually, if I really want to be completely honest to you, and why would I lie to you, right? It makes no sense. I was actually suggested I should become a productivity expert. So in July 2005, a local hospital fired me. So I decided, I know what I'll do. I will be an entrepreneur. And the first thing I did is I went into wedding and portrait photography. Now, keep in mind, this is 2005. Facebook was still a baby. Twitter's just a baby. There was no Instagram or anything like that. And I said, well, how can I promote my business? I didn't want to do what everybody else is doing, which is direct mail. So I knew this friend who was a professional speaker. And I went and talked to her, and I said, well, can you help me grow a speaking platform so I can go out and speak to grow my photography business? Well, the first time I went out and spoke, my wife said, oh, you shouldn't be a photographer. You should be a speaker. And I'm like, okay. So I was originally talking about photography, but that wasn't my passion. And then I tried to come up with some topics. One of them, I'm so embarrassed to say, was called From Hopeless to Hopeful. I have no idea where I came up with that. That went no place. Then I came up with an idea was how to overcome roadblocks in your path to success. Note to self, when you're not successful, don't tell people how to be successful. So one day I was on a phone call with a coach of mine, and I was having a bad day. I was just not feeling it. And he goes, what's going on? I said, I really love speaking. I love training. I love helping people, but I don't know what I should do. He goes, well, why don't you talk about productivity? And I said, well, I don't know where that came from, but why would you say that? And he said, because you're like naturally productive. I don't know too many people who are productive like you are. I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, you should teach people your way of being productive. And that gave birth to my whole thing of productivity. I'm now known on LinkedIn as Mr. Productivity. A guy named Jeff Young gave me that title about a year ago. And so I just love doing it. I guess because I'm so naturally productive, maybe it's the way I was raised and had no siblings or anything like that. I like being productive and efficient. And so it's just a natural fit for me.
Okay, so I know you probably already know this is coming, but what does that mean? You like being productive?
Productive to me means when you do what you need to do when you need to do it. When you are in your, how do I want to say this? When you're doing what you are called to do. And I didn't know what I was called to do until about maybe 2011, about 8 years ago. I had no clue. And so if you feel like you're pushing a rope, I argue that you'll never be the most productive version of yourself. So I think everyone's got their own version, their own definition of productivity. Yes, you can look it up in the dictionary. Yes, you can ask different productivity experts, but I think you need to look at yourself and say, okay, like, how do I define success? Same question. How do I define productive? How do I know I'm being productive? Because I think it's got to be customized for you instead of taking a definition from the interwebs and using that definition. I think you need to, I mean, you can use it as a guide, but you need to create your own definition so you own it.
Okay. I like that. I like that. So when you decided you wanted to be a productivity expert, did you go out speaking? Did you train people? How did you make the pivot from you, because you said you were doing photography for a while, then you decided to get into speaking, and now you're doing keeping people teaching them how to keep distractions out. So tell me how that evolution went.
I did what a lot of honest entrepreneurs do. I just stumbled and bumbled and tried this. It didn't work. Let me try this. How do I learn how to do this? How do I figure this out? What's amazing to me, Trina, is when I went and began studying high performers, very successful people in our world, I realized they just like, okay, let me try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let me try this. And so that's what most entrepreneurs do. They just, okay, I want to go from here to here. How do I do that? Well, I don't know. Let me go to this website that no one's ever heard of called google.com and say, how do I XYZ? And that's, so I self-taught myself. I self-taught myself podcasting. I self-taught myself how to be a speaker. I self-taught myself how to be a trainer. And I think that's, the essence of being an entrepreneur. You just figure it out as you go along. If you decide you want to be a video trainer, well, how do you do video? You just go and learn it. I think that's what most entrepreneurs do. You just learn as we go. So I didn't have a plan. I didn't know, like when I first got in, I was talking about productivity. Productivity is this ginormous umbrella. And I'm like, okay, I need to focus down because no one's going to hire me for a 20-day keynote.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started looking around and seeing everybody's like obsessed with their phones and technology. And I noticed that their phones are going ping, zoom, swoosh, ding, dong. And I'm like, distractions. And so even though I can talk about any aspect of productivity, I focus in on distractions because distractions are truly keeping us from doing what we really need to get done.
I like that. Now, let's go into the distractions because I like what you're saying. And me personally, one of my big things that I found that is not only a distraction in the tangible sense where, you're hearing the pings and everything, but I think it is a distraction as far as mentally and mindset is the news. So I've stopped watching the news. So tell me about the different distractions, how you go into corporations, talk to CEOs, and just tell me about how do you teach people how to overcome distractions?
Well, I have identified the top 5 distractions everyone deals with. Now, this is in no particular order. It's going to be different for everyone, but their email, social media, human beings, entertainment, because entertainment's huge now with gamings and all that stuff, and then their mindset. And when I go talk to a client, no matter who they are, I really do like an interview with them and say, okay, tell me about your day. And usually they say, I wake up, I grab my phone. Okay, stop.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We already have a problem. 3 things you should never do in the morning. Check social media, check your email, check the news. Now, you can watch the news. I have no problem with you watching the news, but you should watch the news or check in on the news when you want to. And I think if you want to have a super duper productive day, you should have a really good night's sleep. We can talk about that later if you want. And you should cherish that first hour of your day. So maybe you read the Bible, maybe you meditate, maybe you do yoga, maybe you go for a run. That first hour of your day, you should make it yours. Because as soon as you open your email or check the news or check social media, now you're entering the world of negativity. And so when I talk to people, I really want to find out where are their bottlenecks in their productivity, because everyone's different. Not everyone has a problem with the morning. Sometimes people have a problem when they are on break or they take lunch or they're at their break room talking to people in the break room. And so we all have our bottleneck. So there's no boilerplate that says A plus B plus C equals D. It works different for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yes, definitely. So how are you received? Because I would imagine going into corporations, I just being where I came from, corporate America, I don't see how companies, I see the value in you, but are they calling you and saying, I'm distracted or my people are distracted and we want you to come in and help us out? How does that work?
Well, it's interesting. It's funny you ask this. It's interesting is leaders will contact me and say, my employees are not doing this. And I'm like, I think the onus is on you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you mean? I'm like, are you enabling them to be productive? For example, do you know your employees? Do they know are they in the right seat? To use Jim Collins from Built to Last and Good to Great fame, are they in the right seat on the right bus doing the right job? Or did you just hire them? And that's on you as a leader. If you don't know, I don't care if you have 3 people or 3,000, do you know everyone's strength in your company? Because if you got a guy who's really good at Excel spreadsheets, he dreams in Excel spreadsheets. He wraps Christmas presents in Excel spreadsheet. I mean, that's what he does. But you have him making copies or doing sales, he's in the wrong seat.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think leaders of any business need to make sure that you have the people in the right seat doing the right job. And when I tell them that, they're like, what do you mean it's my fault? Well, you're the leader, you hired them, or you hired the leader, or you hired the boss who hired the boss who hired them, but you're directly responsible because you're at the top. You need to make sure these people understand what they're doing. Do they need more training? Are they confused? I remember when I used to work for a hospital here in Houston, the C-suite and the IT people wanted to get new software. They never had anybody who used the software, like I was in inventory control, the nursing station, the doctors. They didn't ask us. They made the decision. They just forced it on us. And the efficiency took a huge dip for many months because we're like, before I knew how to do ABC. Now it's like, what do we do? And you look at the screen, you're like so confused because it was like going from English to Mandarin Chinese. And because they didn't involve the people on the front line. Oh, they're just on the front line. Oh, they're just salespeople. Oh, they're just customer service. Yeah, but they're the front face of your business. And so I think leaders, instead of them starting with the question of like, well, what can we do about my employees? I'm like, let's start with you first. Are you making it easy for them to be productive? If they need training, are you sending them to training, paying them for training on company time, or are you being cheap about it and say, well, just figure it out? I think the productivity in any business starts at the top. It cannot start with the employee. It's got to start at the top, because if it starts at the top, then it's going to filter down and the company's going to embrace it. But if you tell people, I'll just figure it out, then like, I'll just go someplace else. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. No, I totally agree. So when you finally get them past their shock that they're the problem.
That's a challenge. I'll be honest with you. It is a challenge because they just figure they're the leader, and how dare I? And I'm like, well, do you want help or don't you want help?
Mm-hmm.
It's your call.
So for those that say, okay, I want help, you just slap me in the face with that, but I still need you to come in and help me. What do you do? What's your strategy, and how do you go into these corporations?
Well, I will sit down and say, okay, tell me again, like I already mentioned, what's the problem? I don't want a vague, like, well, they're not being productive. That doesn't tell me anything. I can't, if you walk into the emergency room and say, it hurts, what hurts? So be specific.
Mm-hmm.
Are they not showing up on time? Are they talking too much? Are they on the phone? What is specifically the problem? And you know this, Trina. If someone comes to you for help, people need to know, you need to know exactly what their problem is. They come to you with a vague problem. You're like, I need more details. And so I try to get them to tell me specifically. And because it goes back to what I said earlier, because they don't know their people really well, They can't give me specifics. I'm like, how can I help you? What that means is I had to come to your company and just sit around and watch people all day long, which is a colossal waste of your time and my time, and you're paying a lot of money for me to do that, when you should be able to tell me the problem is X. Okay, now I can fix X. But people are so vague, not just in companies. People, all my clients, even the individual ones, they're very vague. They don't, very, very rarely they come to me and say, I have a problem with X. They say, well, I want to be more productive. I'm like, okay, well, now I have to figure out, what are you doing right? What's going wrong? What are your struggles? And that takes longer, the process, than if you come in and say, listen, I have trouble doing X. Okay, now I can really focus in on that. And people, I don't know, it's just like, they call me and then they're giving me pushback when I ask them for specific details. Well, I can't help you unless you're specific.
Well, is what I was thinking, and what would be interesting. So when you get there and these CEOs or whatever have no clue, do you ever go to the employees and say, hey, tell me how you work your day?
Well, yeah, that's the next step. I will go talk to John or Jane and say, okay, tell me about your struggles. Okay, because anything they tell me, I don't go back and tell the leader. I said, just what's holding you back? What don't you like? And most of the time, it's going to fall in the category like, okay, they don't listen. This is not my strength. I have no idea how to use the software. It's stuff like that the leader should have known all along. If not the big leader, then the immediate supervisor should know this. And what happens when I find out, and this gets into political stuff, and people, nobody wants to make waves because they're all trying to climb the ladder and no one wants to say anything. And like, well, the bottom line is, when you have employees not being productive, it directly affects your bottom line, because then customers aren't being served and they're leaving.
Right.
And so it becomes a problem where it starts spreading like a bunch of ooze, and it goes everywhere, and or like ants at a picnic. And you got to step back and go, okay, do I want my employees to be productive, or don't I want my employees being productive? And I tell people what you should do is, again, I don't care how many people you have in your company, a couple times a month, take 3 or 4 employees out to lunch away from the company. And you tell them, anything that's said at this luncheon, it doesn't go past me. I will take your, be like completely anonymous, and really ask them, okay, what's going on? Tell me your problems. And it could be something like, we have an annoying employee that works in the department. Hopefully they didn't come with a lunch with you, because that would be a entirely different problem. But but in the beginning, they're not going to really open up to you. Okay. But if you make it a regular process, and the word gets around, like, oh wow, man, you go talk to the big boss, you go to lunch with him, oh man, he keeps it, everything he really wants to know. Then they're going to start opening up, and everyone's going to win, because the company's going to win. You're going to satisfy more customers, the ROI, all those things are going to happen. But it's got to start with the leadership. You cannot expect, just because you gave someone the job and say, here's the software, here are the tools, good luck. You can't expect them to just jump in and be like a Tom Brady picking up a football. You're going to have to lead them. That's why you're called a leader. You have to lead them, and you have to give them the right tools.
Yes. So what is your success rate as far as when you go in and you do what you do? Do you see progress? Do you go back and check in on these people? Do they call you? How do you know that, you've actually been successful at that corporation?
It's funny. It's just like my regular clients. It's my one-on-one clients. They do something for a little while and they go back to the old habits. So I don't think it's not any different. It's amazing. I helped you. You started moving in the right direction, and then I'm gone, and you revert back. Maybe because you've been doing it for so long, or I don't know. It's amazing because they got progress, but it's like, well, I like the way it was before. I wasn't productive. I was miserable, but it was more comfortable. And like, I don't get it. So yeah, that's uniform. It's like, I don't understand it, because when someone comes along in my life and says, hey, why don't you try this? I'm like, wow, okay, it's a paradigm shift, but the results are better. I in my life, I don't go backwards. Maybe I'm an outlier. I don't understand it, but most people I deal with, they seem to revert back to old habits. I mean, I can only help them. I can't force them to change. They've got to say, okay, listen, this new way is really different. but you know what? I'm going to try it for a couple months and see. But you can't try it for a couple weeks or until I leave and then go back to the way it was, because then why did I waste my few hours here on earth if you're not going to make a change? I mean, to me, it's not just about the money. I really want to help people be more productive.
Okay, so let's get into that. Let's get into the distractions and what you think about it. How do you get people to overcome them? What's your strategy? Tell me how you do that.
Well, let's start with email and social media, because those seem to be, really preventing people from being productive a lot. Turn off notifications for social media and for email. Number two is specifically with email, get to the point, stick to the point. So what I mean by that, avoid vagueness. Don't go on and on and on and on and on, the history of your life from DNA to present day. Just get to the point and be specific. So we've all gotten these kind of emails, Trina. I'm sure you have, because I know I have many times. Someone sends you a document and the only thing the email says is thoughts, ? And I'm like, thoughts on what? The font size, the font type, the color, how many pages? Say, hey, a more specific action would be, did I miss anything? Am I too vague? Is there anything wrong in this report? So be very specific. The other thing you do with email is only copy people on the email who genuinely have to be on the email. When I bring up the reply all from the stage, I hear a collective, because there's someone who decides I have to send an email out and I'm going to copy everyone in the company. And of course, then everybody else replies all and says, why am I on this list? And though you get this like a billion emails, and that, of course, now no one's productive because everybody's getting all these, every time someone replies, and it's just a mess. So I'm reminded of a story I read about Steve Jobs, and he was having a meeting about the iPhone, and there were 5 people in the meeting, and he started talking about the iPhone, and he stopped, and he noticed a girl in the room, and he goes, who are you? Steve Jobs, if you've seen him on TV, he's very blunt. And he goes, this is my boss. He told me to come here. And he goes, we won't be meeting you. And he waited for her to get up and leave. And it's like awkward, but he only wanted the people who needed to be in the meeting to be in the meeting.
Right.
He didn't want all these other people. And I think when we send an email, we need to stop and go, okay, does anyone need to be copied on this? Yes. Okay. Who? And only send it to those people. People are copying so many people on so many emails. It's ridiculous, because if you get the email and you're like, why am I getting this email? And you took the time to read it. The second thing, another thing you could do, I don't know what letter I'm on, but let's say C. On your phone, disable vibration mode, because what people don't realize is if you do everything right, you mute your phone, you put it face down, and you get a message, you get a phone call, you get a text message, whatever, your phone's going to vibrate. When the phone vibrates, you might as well pick up the phone, because your distraction's already, your focus is already distracted. So I don't have vibration mode on my phone turned on. So my iPhone's right next to me. Okay. Vibration mode's already off. It's muted and face down. So I have no idea if someone's calling me right now. No idea. So you have to take care of that. So that's a little bit on how to deal with email. Let's talk about social media. Number one, you need to schedule time to be on social media. Now, every phone that I'm aware of, Trina, has a timer on it. And so I suggest before you go on social media, you set a timer, maybe 30 minutes. I wouldn't do more than an hour. I would do 30 minutes, honestly. And then once you set the timer, you can do whatever you want on social media. Now, I'm not talking about social media for growing your business and brand, because that's certainly important. I'm talking about for fun. You're watching cat videos, kid videos, stuff like that. When the timer's over, timer stops, you stop social media. The other way you could do that is if you're a scheduler like I am, maybe you do sales calls from 12 to 12:30. From 12:30 to 1, you take lunch and spend time on social media. At 1 o'clock, you, write some copy for your website. So now you have something at the end of that 30 minutes to stop you. What happens is people pick up their phone and they just start scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And people don't realize social media is designed to keep you on the platform until you die. Okay. They don't want you to leave. That's why I created a video. It's on my website. It's an 11-minute video on 5 ways to control social media. It's a free video. You just go to mrproductivity.com and sign up. You get the video. It's people don't realize that's why it's endless scrolling. That's why when you watch a YouTube video, it says, "Hey, Trina, you might like these other 5 videos." And like, "Oh yeah, cool." And you click, and all of a sudden 6 hours have gone by. That's the way social media is designed. Don't get mad at social media. It's called adulting. You need to say, "Hey, I'm only going to be on social media for 30 minutes. I'm going to stop." Don't blame Facebook and Instagram. It's not their fault that you can't get off the social media platform. I tell people, hey, if you really can't control social media, delete the apps off your phone temporarily. And if that doesn't work, delete your account. If you got that big of a problem, then get it out of your life until you can figure out a way to be in charge of social media instead of letting social media be you. So that's how you deal with email and social media.
Yeah, that makes me wonder if you have that big of attachment to social media. That makes me wonder what are you doing with the rest of your life? Because
yes.
something is wrong there if social media is your priority. And it's funny you say the reply all thing because I hate that. Oh my gosh. I'm just like the people you speak to when you hear the moans and the groans, because inevitably there is someone who will reply all or add all of these different people onto an email, and you're going, why? Mm-hmm. And normally I just delete them. I don't even respond. Like, why am I getting this? I just delete it. But then you find the people who keep the cycle going because they will reply all and say, why am I getting this? And then you have somebody else. Well, why am I getting this? I shouldn't be. And it's like, you idiots, just stop. Just stop. Yeah.
I'll share a funny story. Is I had done a presentation, and what they did is I said, "Hey, can I send you an email you send out to everybody?" And they go, "Yeah, sure. I just want to thank everybody for being at the event and stuff like that." They send an email out. Instead of blind copying a list, they copied everyone. And so I replied to the person, not to all, to the person. I said, "Were you at the presentation?" And they wrote back, "Touche." So I'm like, really? We just talked about this, and you did the exact same thing that you groaned at. So I thought that was kind of hysterical.
Yeah, and that's another thing. They don't blind copy. So when you get it, you got to scroll through 1,200 people before you actually get to the text. And then it makes you go, you know what? I just don't even want to read this. So I agree with you with that. Those are some of my top pet peeves too. And I'm just going, oh my goodness, why? So anyway, sorry to interrupt you. I just had to get that off my chest. So
no, I just, those are two, email and social media distractions. You want to know how I suggest people deal with people?
Oh, yes.
We have to deal with these human beings walking around their planet. And here's the thing. Number one, if someone comes up to you in your office or whatever, or calls you on the phone and say, "Hey, you got a minute?" If you don't have a minute, don't say, "Sure, Trina." You say, "No, hopefully you wouldn't hear the call from Trina because your phone is vibration off, face down, and muted." But if you accidentally pick the phone up, say, "Listen, I don't have time for you right now, Trina, but I'd love to help. So I have 15 minutes at 2:30 this afternoon. Will that work for you?" Okay. So you're not letting them start going because Trina, it's not going to be 5 minutes. You know that. It's not going to be a short call. And so you have to, I'm going to be dating myself here. Some of your listeners may know this. Nip it in the bud. Gomer Pyle? Yeah, nip it in the bud. You got to nip that in the bud. When they call or they come to your office, say, "No, I don't have time for you." And most leaders, if they're worth their salt, are going to respect that. The second thing you need to do is when someone comes in your office and asks you if you got 5 minutes, and you say no, and you say 5 minutes, 15 minutes at 2:30, break eye contact with them. Because if you hold on, you know where I'm going with this, Trina. If you hold eye contact and you're smiling and you're shaking your head, they're going to think you want to engage. Disconnect from the eyes and I don't care what you're working on. Look at your computer keyboard, pick up a piece of paper that's blank. I don't care. Break eye contact. People laugh when I say this from the stage, but I'm like, think about it. What would you do if I said goodbye and we're still like nodding and smiling? You're going to stay there, right? That's what normal people are going to do. You break eye contact, you turn around, walk away, they're going to walk out the door. So you've got to it sounds silly, but it works. And I know your audience is laughing and go, oh, I got to try that. Try it. It works. No one is going to sit there in your office when you sit down on your computer, you start typing your keyboard. It could be, the computer could be off. You're just typing the keys and you're not looking at them. They're going to leave. I'm serious. They're going to leave.
I have tried that. Now, I've been doing that for a while before I knew it was a productivity thing, because you get the people, and it seemed like every time you're in the middle of something that you really have to get accomplished, you already know. You get that person and they're like, hey, blah, 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 my cat jumped over the moon, and blah, 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 blah. And I will just totally ignore them. But then you get the people who still stand there and still want to hold this conversation. And then you're going, and I've had to physically like turn my chair around and turn my back to people for them to get the message.
Another thing you could do is grab something on your desk, folder, notebook, and just pick it up and walk out of your office. I guess I'm serious. You have to do, because you're right. There are some people who are definitely in the wrong seat on the wrong bus, going in the wrong direction, and you need to do something drastic. So if you just need to grab a folder, walk out of your office, walk down the hallway, they're not going to sit there and wait for you to come back. They'll probably look at you and like, oh, she was serious, and they're going to leave. But yeah, you need to, it's sad that it has to come to this, but there are people who do not respect boundaries. Another thing I do is I tell people is if you work in a cubicle, I want you to get 3 colors of construction paper: red, green, and yellow. Green means come on in. Yellow means proceed with caution. Red means you come in here, I'm going to cut your head off. Now, people, this is not a perfect solution. There are people who are going to go blow right past that. But more often than not, people are going to respect it. If you have an office with a door, shut your door. I had a client whose employer, she was an HR director, thought it was a really smart idea to give the HR director the office that was completely enclosed with glass. Now, people can stand outside her office, even though she had an executive assistant who was a pit bull. They would stand at her office away down the hallway a little bit from the desk of the executive assistant and just look at this poor person and waving at her and of course there's no place she can hide. And I'm like, why do companies do this? It's just, they put the office enclosed so it's privacy, but they can see in. It's like, it's a fish tank. Mm-hmm. And so I told her if she needs to be left alone, she needs to go to another office that's vacant or the conference room that only is the executive assistant knows where she is, because people would bother her constantly, knock on the glass like she's a zoo animal or something like that. And she wouldn't get someone. She is going crazy. She says, "It won't leave me alone." And it's like, because they see her in the office. She could be playing solitaire. She could be working on a budget proposal. They don't care. They see her in the chair and they go, "Oh, she's available." No, that's what she has an executive assistant for. You go to her executive assistant and say, "Listen, I need to talk to Jane." Okay, Jane's not available all day, but she's right there. She's not available. So you got to get yourself a really good executive assistant, by the way, someone who's going to be like guard you like with swords and flaming arrows and stuff like that. If you just get one that lets anyone in, that defeats the purpose. Why are you laughing, Trina?
I'm laughing because it's true. It's so funny because I've experienced all of these things. And it's funny now that I look back on it, because you're right. The glass office is like, why? Yeah. And my thing is, with someone who's in HR, honestly, you shouldn't be giving them the glass office, because what if she's in there, firing someone or whatever?
That's what I said.
You don't want everybody to know that. So that was kind of not very smart on their part. Oh, so
again, she hired me individually. The company didn't bring me in.
Oh.
I would have loved, because that's the first question I would ask. I'm like, HR director, why do they have a fishbowl for an office? I mean, I got to know. I'm dying to know. I'd love to know their reasoning on it. So
yeah. So this is, oh my goodness. So I could talk to you forever about this, because this is funny. But I love what you're doing as far as distractions. And like I said, I've never met anyone before who actually goes in and talk about distractions, because it is a real thing. And sometimes I have to catch myself, because I think I have a bit of ADD with the distractions too, because I'll work on something else. Oh, I need to do that. And I'll work on something else. So I know, but I'm not a social media freak, so I don't get on social media and go crazy. My thing is just my brain is working a million miles a minute, and I'm trying to get things done.
That's what entrepreneurs do. But I got to tell you something. When you said ADD, I remember I saw a little skit from. Do you know the comedian Bill Engvall?
Yes.
He did this one skit where him and his wife went to see it wasn't a skit. He was telling a story about his kid got in trouble at school, and he was looking out the window, and his wife says, "Honey, does anyone in your family have ADD?" And he says, "Yeah, we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Why are you spelling it?" And I always thought that was funny.
Yes, exactly. So yeah. So anyway, but I'm going to move into our questions that
Sure.
that I have.
I could talk for a very long time, and I'm sure the listener doesn't want a 20-hour podcast.
And I can talk to you too, because it's funny and some of the stuff.
We should do Joe Rogan. We should be Joe Rogan's. I think the longest podcast he did was 5 hours.
Oh my goodness!
You and I probably could fill that up. I no doubt.
Oh, we could. Okay, we're going to go into the questions. Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Who or what motivates you?
Brendan Burchard.
Really? I like him too. Okay.
I am a student of his Experts Academy. Best course I've ever taken, including college.
Wow. What demotivates you?
People who are lazy or late or just don't respect boundaries.
When was a time that something was said or done to hurt you, but it worked for your good?
When I was fired in July 2005.
What is your fear?
Overall?
Whatever you want to give me.
I hate needles. Flu shot needles, giving blood. When I go there's probably more information your listener wants. When I go get blood, for the blood test, my wife's holding my one hand. They're using the smallest infant butterfly. The phlebotomist is like, comfort me. I'm like, I do not like needles. If they ever told me you want to get high, I'm like, is it involve needles? No way. There's I don't like needles.
Okay.
Has anyone said that in your show before?
No.
I could have said fear of failure or success, but I wanted to do something unique.
No, that's good. That's what I like. Is there a time, and you have to pay attention to these because some people get these mixed up. Is there a time when you wish you had done something that you didn't?
Is there a time I wish I did something that I didn't? I think related to my business, I think the fear of what are people going to think has caused me to delay, whether it's releasing a product or a training or something like that. And I think that's one of the biggest problems I've struggled with.
Okay. Here's the converse of that. Is there a time that you wish you had not done something?
I wish I've not done something. Oh, this is a good place to edit out silence. Something I did not do something. I can't think of anything right now. Nothing's really popping in my head, and I don't want to take 5 minutes to think about it.
Okay. Now, you mentioned this earlier, and this is my question. What is your definition of success?
My definition of success is when you have no debt and you have money in savings accounts and you don't depend on income coming in. So you have enough money to maintain your standard of living, but you're not like, oh, I hope I land this client. I hope I get this coaching client. I hope people sign up for my course or training, that you can just live in freedom. Because I believe in my heart of hearts, whatever that means, is when you have enough money to take care of your expenses, it frees up the stress. Oh, if I break a leg, get in an accident, whatever, I've got money to cover it. And I think a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck and they're living below their means or above their means, below the means.
Above.
Whatever it is. Above, yeah, they're below, they're spending more money. I think for me, success is to be able to provide for my wife. And if, I want to take a vacation, I've got the money. If I have to have a procedure done, I've got the money. And I think not having stress is a big indicator of not having, of being successful.
How do you recharge?
It's kind of funny because in the webinar I did earlier today, someone said, how do you like relax? Because you're always high energy. I recharge I love reading. In high school and college, I hated reading, But then when I became an entrepreneur, I found like people like Brendan Burchard, Grant Cardone, Tony Robbins, Bill Gates, they read a lot. I'm like, they're very successful. They're very wealthy and they read a lot. I'm not reading a lot. So I started reading more and I found out that when you read a lot, you become smarter and you can help more people. So I like to recharge by reading. I don't like watching video. I'm not one of these people, when you tell me you've got a video for me to watch, I'm like, how long is it? I don't like video. I like listening to podcasts. I like running, but I don't like watching video because you can't do something else when you're watching the video.
Mm-hmm. I'm like that too. What are you awesome at?
I'm awesome at being me. There is only one Mark Struczewski in the entire world, and I'm not going to change because this is who I am.
Okay. What legacy do you want to leave?
I want people to know me as someone who really, truly cared about everybody, regardless if we have the same views on things or if we disagree or whatever. I want people to say, you know what? I didn't really agree with him, but you know what? He was he respected me. He really cared. That's the kind of legacy I want to leave.
Okay. So Mark, give the listeners one motivational takeaway.
Tell your time where to go instead of wondering where it went. And what I mean by that is at the end of the day, before you go to bed, or at the very latest, before you start your day the next day, sit down, and I recommend using a planner. You can convert it to your electronic calendar later, but give your day a purpose. Figure out what things you want to get done today and fill in the spots. Even though you can move them around, the people I've studied, when they go into the day with a plan, they're much more productive than if they just say, well, let's see what happens.
So true. Tell the listeners how they can connect with you.
The best way to get a hold of me is to my website, markstruczewski.com. But because no one can spell markstruczewski.com unless you're in my inner circle, I have the domain MrProductivity.com. Mr. is all spelled out. When you type in MrProductivity.com, it goes to markstruczewski.com. You're welcome. And there you can find out about my coaching. I have a live training program I do every month. I have a podcast. All my social media links are there. My blog post, everything's there. So just go to your browser, type in MrProductivity.com, and you'll go to the wonderful world of my website.
Okay, Mark. Well, I enjoyed speaking with you. This has been like really fun.
Am I the strangest guest you've had on the show so far? You can be honest and tell me. I'm
no,
being strange.
No, actually,
okay.
You're
really? Really? Okay. Now the other guests are going, is it me?
No, and you're not strange. And it's funny. I say funny, but I didn't mean like ha funny, but it's funny because everything you were saying was relevant and true. So that's what I really like about it. And it was also of value. But I just want to say thank you for taking your time out to be here with me today on Trina Talk.
Well, thank you for having me. It was an honor to serve both of you and your audience.
If you like Trina Talk, please don't forget to go out to Apple Podcasts to subscribe. Also, who else in your life do you know that needs some motivation and inspiration in their life? Don't forget to share Trina Talk with them. I hope you have a great week. And remember, if you change your mindset, you can change your life. Keep striving because success is a journey, not a destination. You can listen to Trina Talk anytime and anywhere. It's available on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Spotify, and all other places that you can listen to podcasts. If you like the podcast, please don't forget to go to iTunes to subscribe, rate, review, and share. If you have questions for me or need inspiration on how to go to the next level, tweet me directly at Trina L. Martin.